if I could ask just two questions on COVID testing. So about 3 weeks ago, you and I had an exchange in this room in which I
That made it sound nefarious. I don't remember it that way.
nefarious, but I posited a bunch of questions that you couldn't answer about when the tests would be available, how many Americans would be able to order per family, when they would be rolling off the, actually rolling off the factory floors, but then delivered to people and in their hands.
Sure.
It's now three and a half weeks later. Are there any answers to any of those questions yet?
Well, I would say first we've put out a number of steps that have been taken since that point in time. The pleasant and democratic exchange we had in this briefing room a few weeks ago, Mike, but including a number of contracts have been signed. There was an RFP, a request for proposal, that was put out. It was important for us to take the time to assess and work closely with manufacturers and distributors to understand what they can ship and by when. Of course, it's vitally important when this website goes up and people are ordering it that they actually get what they order, right? So that's what we've been working on. So a number of those contracts have been signed. We expect that the first of delivery of these contracts will be arriving by early next week, which is a good sign. We expect to also have details, or everyone can expect we'll have details that we put out on the website, as well as a hotline later this week, more specifics about exactly the questions that you've been asking. So the American public can expect that later this week. And we also expect to have all contracts awarded for the $500 million over the course of the next 2 weeks. So that's the status of where things stand. I would also note that in that period of time, we've also been distributing 50 million tests to community health centers and rural health centers. We've also expanded our federal testing capacity, including right here in Washington, D.C., in New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey, other places that have been impacted. We made an announcement about providing additional funding and testing capacity to schools today. And tomorrow, the president will be providing an update on COVID and on our ongoing effort to fight the virus, and providing an update on more we're going to continue to do. So that's what we can expect, but I would say we've made a great deal of progress in the last few weeks.
Just to follow up on that,
Yeah.
fair to say that with half of January finished and the first of the doses beginning to arrive maybe by next week, that there's no way that 500 million tests are going to be delivered and in the hands of Americans by the end of this month.
Well, that's why we said at the time that we would begin to get these tests, and they would begin to go out to the American public in January. And we're exactly on track for that.
And then the second question, it goes back to the summer. One of the things you guys have said repeatedly is that the reason that you're having to take the kind of steps that you just talked about is because there wasn't the capacity in the system to produce the tests so that they would be more available now. Back in the summer, when demand for tests dropped off because Americans were more interested in getting vaccinated, and the CDC was saying, hey, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to test, and so understandably demand dropped off. Why didn't the administration do what the federal government does in many emergency anthrax vaccines and others, which is to create a government market for tests and say to test makers in May and June of last year, we will guarantee that we'll buy a billion test kits, keep manufacturing them, don't stop. Why didn't the administration do that in the summer so that we would have been in a position this fall when Omicron hit to have the number of tests, and you wouldn't have had to go through this process?
Well, I would say there were steps and decisions that were made in the summer, including steps that we took in the early fall, which were to use the Defense Production Act to $3 billion worth to invest in the testing market. We expanded, in part as a result, the testing capacity by 4 times. We quadrupled the size of it. And we also took a number of steps through that period of time to expand the number of tests that were on the market. Obviously, the FDA works on their own process, but now there are 9 tests. There were far fewer, about half of that number, back in the summer. So there were a number of steps that were taken over the course of time, not just in December, not post-Omicron, to expand and build the testing capacity. Okay.